Evening. My special guest tonight is one of my very favorite actors, someone who's given me immense joy throughout the years. He's as respected by his fellow professionals as he's admired by his fans. One director described him as part chipmunk, part tiger. Billy Wilder said he was a nimble grasshopper. And a critic said he's got the face of everyone's favorite milkman. Well, while you pick your way through that confusion of description, let me introduce the man who inspired it all. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Lemmon. Welcome.
Lovely, thank you. It's nice to be here.
If you don't mind me saying so, I'm being, I suppose, partly impertinent. Lemon's a fairly curious name for a film actor.
I'll tell you what's worse. You know what my middle initial is?
What's it?
U. For Euler. I don't know where that name. It's some old family name.
Euler Lemon.
It was John Euler Lemon III. And it was about 15 years old before I forgave my father for that. I just was terrible. Because all I got was Jack U. Lemon at school. Terrible.
Did anybody ever, Jack, when you started embarking on a screen career, did anybody ever suggest to you might change your name?
When I got my first film with Judy Holliday, It Should Happen to You, I had never met Harry Cohen, who was then alive and running Columbia Films, but I had heard, you know, that he was just very tough, a tyrannical man, and one of the last of the great studio heads who really ran it with an iron fist and everything. Finished the entire film and had yet to meet him, and was on my way back to New York, where I still lived at that time. We had yet to move to the coast. And I got word on the set when I finished my last shot that Mr. Cohen, the Mr. Cohen, wanted to finally meet me. And I went up to the office, and he had it arranged at the end of this long, long office. The Venetian blinds at each window were completely closed at one end, and then they just very slowly opened until they were wide open at his desk. So he sat there with this one sort of spotlight effect on him, you know, and he was bald. And he looked up. And not only that, I swear he headed uphill. I'm pretty sure. It felt like you were walking uphill to get there. And I don't know why. I had no reason to, but I was petrified by the time I got in front of his desk, and he had a riding crop. And I stuck my hand out and said, "How do you do, Mr. Cohen?" And I got it up about halfway. And he lifted his up, but he had the crop in it, and he went, wow, down on the desk like that, and he said, "The critics will use it like a ball bat. They'll kill you, boy." And I said, what? He says, "That name, Lemon, it's got to go." Well, he went on for 5 minutes. He said that you can't possibly. He said, "How can I put a name, Jack Lemmon, up on the screen, you see, as a supposed leading man opposite to this girl?" And so the first thing I said was, "Well, why did you wait till now to bring all of this up? Because it's all done, you see. And I don't want to change it," and so forth. He said, "Well, you're going to change it," etc. I said, "No, I'm not." I was backing away, but I said, "No, I'm not." And then he said, "No." Oh, then I said, "Well, what do you want to change it to?" And he said, "Lennon," which would have meant I would have ended up John Lennon, now that I think of it. But, so he would have had to change his name to John Lemon. It would have been a terrible thing. Anyway. He said Lennon, and I said Lennon, and then jokingly I said, they'll you pronounce it Lennon, they'll think I'm a Russian revolutionary. He said, "No, I looked that up. That's Lenin." But anyway, I said, "No, forget it. I'm going back to New York, and you can forget the whole thing. Don't even give me billing or whatever." So he previewed the picture, and then he gave me bigger billing. And I think he respected me because I did stick to my guns, and we got along just great. I loved him, and I miss him. I think the industry would be much better off if he was still alive. I really do. Yeah.
You started off, though, didn't you? The unlikely things one finds out about you when you go through your research. You were a singing waiter at one time.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that come
I was the
about?
bartender, the waiter, the head waiter, the singing waiter. I also played the piano for old silent movies and did olios and songs, dances, anything we could do. We just had to go out and just don't ever repeat, because if 4 people showed up, that was a full house for this joint where I was. It was a marvelous place called the Old Nick Music Hall, and it was a theater, and they ripped all the seats out and put in tables, and they served chicken in the basket, and that was it, and French fried potatoes, and that's a god-awful. It was just awful food. And we got no money, but we'd get a free meal. If any money was made at the end of the week, you might get $1 or $2. And the most I ever got was $5 or $6, but at least I got fed. I got one meal a day anyhow, and I got experience, and it was very good experience. And if somebody else showed up at another table, then you had to go out and just do something, monologues, anything, just don't repeat. And the people got watered down drinks and everything, but because it was a theater, and naturally it was raked, you see, when they would get up, if they had to excuse themselves for a few minutes, they'd think they were having a hell of a time because they would start staggering downhill, and they couldn't figure that any restaurant wouldn't be flat, you see, so it worked anyhow.
That was interesting, though. You mentioned that you play piano with all these sort of silent screen actors and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
The comedians.
Yes.
But I suppose that was that the first time you come into contact with that generation of comedians?
To that extent, yes, because they ran marvelous old films. They'd have Valentino films, some of Chaplin, or this and that. And a lot of the silent comics. It was so brilliant. You know.
How much did they influence you, Jack? Do you think? Or how much have they influenced you? In your
strangely enough, I don't think they influenced me very much at all. I became really much more aware of how great Keaton or Chaplin or Laurel and Hardy, Fields, all of those people were many years later. At that point, I think I was so wrapped up in myself and trying to, you know, get a job or do this and that I wasn't really studying anybody, so to speak, or I, at least consciously, don't feel I was influenced by any one person.
At that time, of course, you were aiming toward a stage career, weren't you?
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
And you were, in fact, I think it's right. I'm right in saying you were a fairly reluctant entrant into the film industry, weren't you?
One of those terrible snobs that thought the theater was it, you see. And I was going to save the American theater, which for some peculiar reason they wouldn't let me do, but. I'd had absolutely no thoughts whatsoever of ever going into the movies. I thought that movies were for curly-haired, pretty little boys or something, you know. And although I did enjoy certain actors and so forth, I didn't have a total disrespect for it. I personally had no desire whatsoever. It was just that lucky happenstance on the first film with Judy. I thought she was divine, and I had heard nothing but great things from other actors about George Cukor being a marvelous actor's director, which he certainly is.
The film, I should say to the audience, is It Should Happen to You.
Yes,
This is your first film. Yes, sorry.
And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that also. And it was written by Garson Kanin, who had written Born Yesterday, and so that combination. And when I read the script, there was one scene. As a matter of fact, I think it's the one you've got, and that did it. When I read that scene, I said, "Wow, that's a ripper." And I had an idea that fortunately Cukor let me do, and that was to do a false exit in it, which I think it tickled me anyway.
Well, let's have a look at that.
You'll see what I mean, yeah.
From It Should Happen to You, starring you and the absolutely divine Judy Holliday, who's of course
she was
sadly missed. Let's look at it now.
Open up.
Who is it, please?
Open up.
Who is it?
I want to talk to you.
What's that?
That thing up in Columbus Circle,
Uh-huh.
I went over there all right. First off, I couldn't believe my eyes, and then I thought, what a gag.
Yeah.
But since then, I have been thinking about it, and the more I think about it, the more it gets my goat.
Why?
I smoked a pack and a half of cigarettes trying to figure it out.
What?
And you. Costs money, a thing like that, doesn't it?
Oh, it's
Where'd you get it?
To my own. I saved it up.
And is that the best you can think of to do? What sort of a fruitcake are you, anyway?
No soda. So kindly get out of my room,
With
please.
pleasure. I don't know where to get the courage to be in it. You're probably dangerous.
It's all of a
It's
sudden.
my business if there's a maniac running
I'm
around.
not maniac.
Look,
You're the one that's...
just once, every so often, something really gets my goat, and this is one. To think I actually know a grown-up, civilized woman who can take a hard-earned cash that might do some good for her or somebody, just take it and throw it away on a nonsense. It's all garbage.
You hear me ask you what you do with your money?
Oh, don't bother. I haven't even got any.
All I did is happen to meet you in the park. By accident. So I don't see where that gives you the right to tell me off.
Correct.
And furthermore, different people do different things that may seem crazy to other different people. That doesn't make it.
Correct.
And furthermore, do me a favor and butt out.
Oh, would you please do me a favor?
Like
Like
what?
you remember my name?
Sure.
What?
Pete Shepherd.
Well, do me a favor and forget it. Oh! So is it still on for Friday lunch?
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Don't mention it.
That's a lovely moment.
She was, I should have mentioned, for I realize now, it not only was many years ago, I looked like my son when I was looking at that, but I should have mentioned that what I was so furious about was that she had gone out and taken all of her money and hired a billboard and just put her name on it, that's all, just Gladys Glover, just so someone would know her. You know, and I couldn't stand that. I thought it was such a terrible waste.
It works beautifully, that false exit, too.
Yeah, I love that.
Was that improvised on the set? Or?
No, when I read the script, I thought, God, what a marvelous... I don't know why. I just thought that would be beautiful. I hope he'll let me do that. Yeah. To make the exit, it'll really set the line up, and because it's so stupid to do such a thing that way, and it just heightens it.
George Cukor once said of you that you were too nice to play it angry. And yet you didn't do bad in that sequence, did you? How did you get yourself into that frame?
I don't know. I remember there was a thing where, you know, when you get very, very upset, sometimes, it's almost as if you get a stomach ache. So we started doing that, and also the problem in that scene was how to make switches and not just play on one note, so that if you, when we got the stomach ache, which I think was George's idea, I've forgotten of mine, I don't know, it's been so many years, but then he could stop at least and hold the stomach and try to pull himself together at least, and then start again, because otherwise you'd have, you know, just nothing but ranting and raving there for about 5 or 6 straight pages.
Yes. What about, I think the thing that fascinates me about actors is the sort of, not being one myself at all, as it's quite obvious to anyone who watches this program, but if you, as a technique, Jack, are there certain keys to a character? Are there things that happen quite by chance, perhaps, that all of a sudden, the revelation?
Mm-hmm. And it's a terribly difficult thing to explain, but they can. You can work and work for weeks and weeks. You can search and delve and dig and rehearse and everything, and you still haven't quite got him. It doesn't feel right. It isn't full, and it isn't there. And sometimes it gets worse and worse. You really are lost. And then one little thing, and it can be external, too. It can be the way you tilt your head, the way you walk, or whatever, can do it. Like that. And I remember reading an article by Larry Olivier in which he said that he was in about a 3rd or 4th week of rehearsal of a play, and he could not get the character. And one day when they were breaking from rehearsal and going to lunch, it looked overcast, and he brought his umbrella along. And it wasn't yet raining, so he was carrying it like a cane. And all of a sudden, the whole part came to him as he walked across the street. He swears the entire part came to him after 3 weeks of nothing. By the walk and the way he carried the thing, the whole manner, everything about him changed, and he had it, and it was there. It was irrevocable, and I can understand it. It can happen. It sounds silly, but it's true. Those little things can do it.
You once had some advice from him, though, didn't you, about doing stage play?
He was marvelous. He said a wonderful thing to me. I did a revival of Idiot's Delight, a marvelous Robert Sherwood play that the Luntz had originally done. And several years ago at the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles, and Larry was over there, and we were having dinner at Garson Kanan's house, who was directing this revival. And in it, the character of Harry Van that I was to play plays a song and dance man who never could quite make it. And he's got a troupe of girls, and he's touring Europe because he could never get on the good vaudeville circuits of America, this being way back in the 30s, you see, and before the demise of vaudeville. And so, since there was a similarity only in that aspect, I asked him how he had done such a magnificent job when he did The Entertainer. I thought it was a brilliant performance, and one of the things that struck me was how brilliantly he had done the song and the dance and the patter of this man, this performer who was not really quite good enough. You know, he was just kind of mediocre. And Larry did it so brilliantly, and I said, how? What, was there a key? Was there a thing? And he leaned over next to me and he said, my dear boy, very simple. Every single night I did it as best as I possibly could. And I loved it. I loved it.
Let's talk just a wee bit about Judy Holliday, because we rather forgot about it.
Divine.
She had that extraordinary voice. Was that real, Jack, that voice?
No.
It wasn't.
I mean, that's, it was her making, and it started with Born Yesterday. It wasn't really the way she spoke. She was an unbelievably bright girl, a terribly bright girl.
Really?
Lord knows what her IQ was, but she was extremely bright, well-read, a lovely, wonderful person, the total opposite of the dizzy blonde characters that she became associated with. Quite different from that. And a very lovely girl. When I went out, I was naturally very apprehensive. I didn't know anything about film or anything, and I by no means had the part. I had to test. And so I did the test with one girl, and they liked that pretty good. And they said, okay, now let's test with Judy. And so she said fine, and I was very nervous about it. And the night before we were going to shoot, I'd only met her that day, and we rehearsed and went through the scene with George in the afternoon. And then I got all my courage up, and I said, would you like to have a dinner tonight? And she said, swell, I'd love to, because I wanted to get to know her as best I could, you see. And so I went roaring out, and I rented a car, and I had the directions, and I picked her up, and we're starting off to the restaurant, and I get a flat tire. And at this point, we're not near anything or anybody. I said, oh, my God, well, there's some lights way down the street there, and I'll go down, and you want to walk with me, or do you want to, it's quite a long ways. And I said, oh, I didn't know what. She says, no, you go ahead, I'll wait right here. Well, I went all the way down there, and there was no gas stations around, no mechanics that I could get or anything. Now I was desperate. I came back, she had changed the tire. She got out and did it. Amazing. Grease all over her hands. I mean, she said, okay, here we go, let's go, I'll clean up there. And, it was absolutely extraordinary. I think I couldn't believe it. She'd gotten it out, jacked the whole car up, and done it.
I don't meet girls like that at all.
It was marvelous. So.
You worked, talking about blondes there, you worked, of course, later with another blonde, Marilyn Monroe, didn't you?
Yes.
We had Tony Curtis on the program recently, Jack, and of course he was in the film that you both done, Some Like It Hot, the Billy Wilder movie. And he said that it was difficult, to say the least, working with her, because she had this thing about 25 takes. And
yes.
Did you find it difficult?
Yes, for some reason, I didn't. Fortunately, it didn't bother me as much as it did Tony, and in no way am I criticizing him, or anything. He found it much more difficult. Somehow, I was able to make some kind of an adjustment, but also, he did have more scenes with her, since he was the love interest with her, and I was the love interest with Joe E. Brown. That's an unlikely part, but that's another story. So he had some tough, long scenes with Marilyn, and that is difficult. She had an unbelievable built-in kind of alarm clock that would go off when a scene wasn't right for her, and she would just stop. Which is very unusual. Usually you don't ever stop unless a director says cut. A director may stop a scene, but it's very seldom that an actor, unless they've blown the lines, will stop and say, oh, I'm sorry. But Marilyn would just do it. She would stop if it wasn't going right for her. She just somehow had that instinct, you see, about herself. Well, that drove Tony absolutely fruitcake, and he couldn't stand it. So then he'd get uptight, It was one of those things. I found her totally fascinating, but I must say, and we got along famously, but I would never be able to say I really knew her, because you could get just so close to Marilyn, and then she'd kind of go inside, She'd cut you off. She wouldn't let you get too close to her. I'm sure she naturally had some very close friends where that was not so, but I could never get too close to her, even though I know she was fond of me, and we got along, as I said, very famously. But she was, there was an innate sadness about her.
Your friend,
I found.
He mentioned this, actually. He said
Yes.
there was a sense of tragedy about her.
Absolutely.
Almost.
She was an unhappy girl.
Well, let's look at her, actually, in a happy moment from that absolutely superb movie. It really is one of my favorite comedies of all time. And it's a sequence between you and Marilyn, and you're a very lucky fellow. Well, you're a woman, in fact, in this film.
I don't want her to know we're in cahoots.
Oh, well, we won't tell anybody. We're not even Josephine.
Maybe I better stay here till she goes back to sleep.
You stay here as long as you like.
I'm not crowding you, am I?
No, it's nice and cozy.
When I was a little girl on cold nights like this, I used to crawl into bed with my sister. We'd cuddle up under the covers and pretend we were lost in a dark cave and were trying to find our way out.
That's very interesting.
Anything wrong?
No, not a thing.
You poor thing, you're trembling all over.
It's ridiculous.
Your head's hot.
Ridiculous.
You've got cold feet.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Here, let me warm you up a little. There. Isn't that better?
Yes, I'm a girl.
What'd you say?
I'm a very sick girl.
Oh, I better go before I catch something.
I'm not that sick.
I've got very low resistance.
Oh, well, sugar, if you feel that you're coming down with something, my dear, the best thing in the world is a shot of whiskey.
You got some?
I know where to get it. Don't move. Hold on.
Okay.
Up, now.
Are you all right?
I'm fine.
How's the bottle?
Half full.
You better get some cups.
Cups. Oh, I tell you, my dear, this is the only way to travel.
You better put on the lights. I can't see what I'm doing.
No lights. We don't want them to know we're having a party.
But I might spill something.
So spill it. Spills, thrills, laughs, and games. This may even turn out to be a surprise party.
What's the...
Actually, I think if I'd have been playing with Marilyn Monroe in that bed scene, the initial sequence there, that I'd have been glad it took 30-odd takes,
Now,
actually.
you know something? That whole first long thing was the first take. Just to show you how things can happen. And it totally shocked me. It was the first take, straight through. Billy said print, and she said, I loved it too. And I thought, what happened? Because I was ready to go all day. And it's lucky I got all the words right, because I had learned to kind of pace myself with Marilyn, so you don't go by it. Don't end up just exhausted and with your energy level way down as she began to, pull it all together. Because the day before, we had gone like 37 takes, and she had exactly 2 lines. Good. Where she walked in and said, where's that bourbon? Oh, there it is. But it didn't feel right for her, you see. And we went 37 takes. And next morning, we came in, did the whole upper berth thing, that whole first take before he goes down to get the booze, in one. And she had it in the first crack, so you never know.
Perhaps she didn't like being in bed with you.
Ah, well.
Oh, nobody's perfect. That marvellous thing there that Wilder did in that movie, and indeed you and Tony Curtis did, was, I mean, you wore women's clothes throughout the entire movie. And
Yes,
yet
yeah.
You trod the tightrope, didn't you, all along? It never went over into the queer thing at all.
No, not at all. I think that in a part like that if anybody would ever worry or think about that kind of self-consciousness would ruin it. I think you just have to say, forget it, and just play the part to the hilt, absolutely to the hilt, and just go to the moon with it.
Yes.
Let it go, because, or at least the character I played anyhow, is absolutely insane anyway. He never acted, he only reacted. And once I realized that, then I was all set. I mean, he no matter what you said, he would then react. He never stopped to think. He was incapable of creating a thought, whereas Tony's character would be the motivator. He's the one who would get the ideas. He's the one who would do it, and I'd just go and react, no matter what it was,
Yeah.
And without ever thinking. He never stopped to think. So I just never stopped to think or worry about that, said to hell with it, just go, and let it go all the way.
Did you base it, actually, on any woman at all? You may be honest on this.
No, but I'll tell you something very funny that I realized shortly afterwards. Once we had gotten the makeup right and everything, and had gotten the hair right, my mother came to the set to visit us. And I suddenly stood beside, and there was one of those wardrobe mirrors, and we both were there, and I looked, and my God, I looked just like her. I really did. She had her hair done like mine. And she always had this sort of slight bee sting, you know, the lipstick thing on there, and we really did. And so I had a couple of pictures taken of us together. We looked like sisters. It's very funny.
Did you ever try out the disguised Jack, though, in real
Yes.
life?
Oh, yeah. When we first, it took about 3 or 4 days of tests to try to get it right, because it had to be funny, yes, but it also had to be good enough so that even though it was a broad farce, it would be believable that they could get away with it in front of the girls. So that also was another fine line about it. And when we did get the makeup to our satisfaction, we were going to lunch, Tony and I, at the commissary, and I said, wait a minute, I got an idea. And there was a bunch of girls that were working on another film in the back lot of MGM, which is where we were doing the tests. It was not an MGM film, it was a United Artists film, but that's where we were shooting at the moment. And I said, I think they're going to the ladies' room, follow them. So he said, what? I said, great, follow them. So we did. And nobody batted an eyeball. We just went right on in. And I figured if we could get by with them, you know, then... So we told Billy, and he said, terrific, that's it. We don't change anything. Yeah. And that's how we ended up with the final makeup, without going any further.
Possibilities are endless, aren't they?
Is there another topic that you would like?
Yes, certainly. I doubt if there's one as interesting as this one. You mentioned there, of course, Wilder. You've got a very kind of special relationship with him, haven't you? You appeared in, I think, some of your best movies, actually. Have been,
I absolutely adore that man, personally and professionally. I think that maybe the most lucky thing of my entire life was, certain professional life, was meeting Billy. He's had a profound influence on me as a person and certainly professionally, because I agree with you. I think any of those parts that I have had, just one of them, you know, any actor would give his eye tooth for. I have been extraordinarily lucky, and others aside from the Billy Wilder films. The greatest fortune I have had is not being successful or anything else. It's the parts themselves that bring great satisfaction to an actor. And, you know, whether the results were good in somebody else's opinion or not, it's a great fulfillment, you know, to yourself when you can get a part, instead of having, as so often happens, with very good actors that don't get those breaks, to sit and know that they don't ever get the part, to stretch themselves, to use themselves, you know. And,
is he a difficult man to work with, though, Jack, in the sense, I mean, is he a slave driver? Does he...
well, Billy, I think, is the most demanding director.
Really?
Far and away that I've ever known. He knows precisely what he wants. He is the writer and the director. And so, therefore, there's no gray area of misinterpretation. You know, he knows exactly what he had in mind all along, and he is a taskmaster. There is never, ever such a thing as an ad lib. The marvelous thing about his writing is that it is honed down to exactly and precisely to the comma, to the if, and but of what is right. And if you miss a word, or if you add a word, something's wrong. The meter is gone. Well, you might as well try to ad-lib Shakespeare. It cannot be done correctly. And yet it sounds at times as if it's extemporaneous, you know. Yes. That's the beauty of it. That's why the writing is so good. But it's the Bible. And if you're doing 5 takes, 5 pages in a take, and you have missed a word, you will do it again. And Izzy Diamond, I.A.L. Diamond, his collaborator, sits there on the set with the pages, right like that, while the take is going on. And if Billy missed a word that you missed and you didn't know it, Iz taps him, says, Billy says, here we go again, and you'll do it again, no matter how good it was. He really will, as he really knows what he wants. But obviously he's right, you know, because he's right more often than he's wrong. Yeah, he's over the years, you know, there's probably nobody that's done greater work.
No, one of the great talents.
Just fantastic.
In Hollywood. Let's have a look, Jack, now to a scene from another film that you did with Wilder, that lovely bittersweet film, The Apartment,
yes,
that you did with Shirley MacLaine. Let's have a look at a scene from that now.
About a year ago, I was going to night school. I was taking this course in advanced accounting. One of the guys in our department, lives in Jersey, had to go to a banquet at the Biltmore. His wife was meeting him in town. He needed some place to change into a tuxedo, so I gave him the key. And word must have gotten out, because the next thing I knew, all sorts of guys are suddenly going to banquets. Well, you give the key to one guy, you can't say no to another. The whole thing got out of hand and, pardon me.
Baxter, an insurance company is founded on public trust. Any employee who conducts himself in a manner unbecoming... How many charter members are there in this little club of yours?
Just those 4. Out of a total of 31,259. So actually, we can be very proud of our personnel, percentage-wise.
That's not the point, Baxter. 4 rotten apples in a barrel, no matter how large the barrel. You realize if this ever leaked out...
It won't. Believe me, never again. Nobody is going to use my apartment from now on.
Where is your apartment, Baxter?
West 67th Street. You have no idea what I've been going through with the neighbors and the landlady and the liquor and the key and...
How do you work it with the key?
I usually slip it to them in the office and then they leave it under a mat. Never again, I can promise you that.
Yes, Miss Olson?
Mrs. Sheldrake, returning your call. On 2.
Yes, dear. I called you earlier. Where were you? Oh, you had to take Tommy to the dentist, huh? No cavities. Good. Hold it, dear. Where are you going, Baxter?
I don't want to intrude. I thought since everything's straightened out anyway.
I'm not through with you yet. The reason I called is I won't be home for dinner tonight. The branch manager from Kansas City's in town. I'm taking him to the theater. Music Man, what else? No, don't wait up for me, darling. Goodbye. Tell me, Baxter, have you seen Music Man?
Well, not yet. I hear it's one swell show.
How would you like to go tonight?
Well, you and me? Well, I thought you were taking the branch manager from Kansas City.
No, I have other plans. You can have both tickets.
Well, that's very kind of you, but I'm not feeling well. I've got this cold. I'm going to go right home.
Baxter, you're not reading me. I told you I have plans.
So do I. I'm going to take 4 aspirin, get into bed, so you might as well give the tickets to somebody else.
Look, Baxter, I'm not just giving these tickets. I want to swap them.
Swap them for what?
It also says here that you are alert, astute, and quite imaginative.
Oh?
Well, did you give him a cold, Jack, in that scene, or was that written in? Because it makes the whole character so...
It was written in.
It was written in,
Yeah,
that was
it was written in that
It
he had the
somehow
cold, yeah.
points the whole... I mean, he's a real loser, that guy, isn't he? All the way
As
through.
I remember, I kept working like mad on closing the sinuses to have the cold. The day after we finished the sequence and he no longer had the cold, I came down with the worst cold that I've ever had. I've been very fortunate. I've never really been ill, seriously ill, you know, or lost any time when we've been shooting. And that's the closest I ever came. But then I had the terrible problem of trying to sound like I didn't have a cold. And so I was running with squeezing that stuff in between scenes all the time, trying to keep my head clear.
Yeah.
All of which is very dull. However, we will get to the A material any moment.
That character you developed there was... well, in fact, that was the first film, wasn't it, where you started really developing this character that we've come to know you play in many more, or develop through many movies. Is he an observable character, Jack, in American society, or is he a sort of fictional one?
I don't know. I am sort of unaware, because many people have said exactly this, you know, and slowly I became aware that there was a kind of a thread through many of these characters. And I don't know how in the heck it started, to tell you the truth. I think that there's some kind of an empathy, of an identity with many men, or the average man, let's say, with these characters because they're flawed. They're faulted. They're not, you know, the leading man. They're characters, really. They're character leads, and usually the parts, apparently, that I've been attracted to are flawed. Somehow maybe the character bumbles through and he makes it, or he can grow and he matures, whatever it may be, and he may change. But he is flawed, basically, and usually frustrated. And we all are, you know, in our daily lives, and we are flawed. And I think that that somehow there's an identity there, you know, between Not that every man in America is giving the key to his apartment out, I want you to understand. But I think that must be it. I don't know. I can't figure any other
Yes.
reason, you know.
And yet, again, of course, many of your films, too, I think, portray at the end what you get. As you say, through this flawed character, you get a fairly unsympathetic view, actually, of American society.
Yes.
Is this, I mean, do you basically feel that this is the way American society is, that it is cruel to people who are flawed?
No. In other words, that would be an exaggeration.
Yes.
But I do think that exists, and if it does exist and it can be pointed out, then that's good.
Yes.
In other words, I think that Billy in the apartment was not just telling a story about a couple of people. He also had some points to make about our society, a certain part of our society, or certain behaviors in our society that we would condone that are rotten, you see. Not that it would only be in America, but this was about America and a certain segment and a certain part of behavior that he was critical of. But he sort of grew a rose in a garbage pail, so to speak, because he made you care about two people while he was making these points, rather than hitting you over the head with it.
Yes.
But there certainly was a great deal of social comment in it, and
Yes.
I thought that that was one of the brilliant things about the script, that he was able to tell an interesting story, make you care about two people, but at the same time, make a comment. He does the same thing in Avanti in a different way.
This is a new film that
In the film that I just finished, yes. And there he takes a rather uptight, reactionary, young, wealthy American and brings out this sort of the ugly American side of him, He brings him over to Italy, where the man cannot understand why there's all this red tape. Why aren't you people efficient? What's wrong with the customs? Get this done. Come on, you're all crazy. 2.5 hours for lunch, eating the spaghetti, and blah, 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 and everything else. And then but he changes. Finally, his horizons are a little broadened, and he begins to get out of his own life, which is totally money-oriented, and realize that there's something else. And he begins to open up and to actually fall in love. He just didn't even have the capacity for that because he was so obsessed with business, you see, that he had never really lived. He'd never breathed, And Billy does it marvelously but he tells a story. This is the background. He makes the social comments.
Yes. Has anybody ever tried, Jack, to persuade you to do something other than play a 20th century man? I mean, have you ever had an offer of a biblical role or anything like that?
I did a test. Thank God that Harry Cohen and I hit it off as well as we did, because they were doing Joseph and his brethren, yes. It never was finally made. And as a matter of fact, I think Tony at one point was going to play it. He would have been infinitely superior to me in it. But can you see me as Joseph? Well, Harry kept saying, now, come on, please do this test. And I kept saying, listen, I don't, it's wrong, please. And Jerry Wald, who was then alive, was producing it, and Clifford Odets was writing it. And they all kept after me, and I said, well, I can't refuse. I didn't have the right to refuse, as a matter of fact. So I did. Well, they brought me up and put on this thing, this kind of a skirt with a belt down to here and one strap over, and then the sandals with the laces up to here. Oh, Jesus. I walked onto that set to do a serious scene, and the grips started falling out of the rafters. I never, ever in any comedy got as big a laugh as I got in that. We could not shoot all morning long. Every time I'd opened my mouth, they'd start going, and the cameras were jiggling, guys were turning away, and it was just awful, just god-awful. I did the test with Rita Hayworth. And she had a great deal of trouble, I'll tell you, because she'd start cracking up in the middle of the scenes. Yeah. And I tried my best. Yeah. But then Harry said, okay, you don't have to play the part. He said, but if you ever give me any trouble and you try to back out of a picture that I'm going to put you in, he says, I'm going to show everybody in town that test. So he held it over me.
Because a very different part for you, a very different film, of course, was Days of Wine and Roses.
Yes.
What made you particularly want to do that subject, which is about alcoholism, wasn't it, Jack?
I was afraid of it. That's one of the reasons.
Really?
I think there's been parts that I don't mean that they are necessarily difficult, but they might be to me. And if I've read a script and I know damn well that it's good and that that's a heck of a part, but I'm a little afraid of it, then I really don't want to turn it down because I'll start rationalizing, and I'll spend the rest of my time saying, you backed away from it, kid. You were afraid. So I'd rather do it if I felt that strongly about it and flop than not do it. And I didn't know how to play the part. That's another thing that attracts me. If I can finish a script and I don't know how to play that part yet, then there's something there. You know, you've got to dig, and there's something to find, rather than say, oh, that's 4H. I did him last year, you know, or that's off the side of your foot because you've played him, you know, or it's skin deep. It's just surface. Yes. And it's those two things. If I don't know how to play them, and if I'm a little bit afraid, I felt that about that part, and so I said, okay, let's go. And I felt it about Save the Tiger, which is a film that's not out yet, that I just finished before Avanti. Same thing, and that's a heavy drama also.
Well, let's look at, there's one particular scene from Days of Wine and Roses, which I shall always remember, which when I first saw it in the cinema, really made me catch my breath. It's a scene where all of a sudden it turns nasty, where this sort of comic drunk really gets it. That's the most extraordinary blend, isn't it, of comedy and real drama. I mean, the flowers behind the back, that's pure Keaton, that, isn't it? It's just that awful walk into that plate glass.
I love things like that. Blake Edwards, who directed that, usually, it was interesting because Blake, I had done practically all comedies as far as films were concerned up to that point, and Blake had done practically all comedies, you know, Pink Panther, this, that. He's certainly more known as a comedy director. But I don't know why, I got that crazy idea of picking the flowers. It was not in the script, of picking the flowers, of almost walking through the thing, and then having the elevator doors chop them off, so that later, in the middle of a dramatic fight, which comes after that, right, I could suddenly notice them and wonder what the hell happened to him, because he never did figure it out. I love if you can put comedy into drama. Yeah. I love it. It's because that's what life is like. We tend to sort of label films. If it's a comedy, it's supposed to be a comedy, and if it's a drama, it's a drama. That's why Billy in The Apartment did such a brilliant job of putting comedy and drama and romance together. Mm. He's done it again in Avanti, I think. Mm. And it's not easy, but it's always marvelous, sometimes even if it's just for relief. I remember being struck years ago when I saw Marlon. Marlon Brando, who else? When I saw Marlon in Streetcar Named Desire, which was one of the great performances I've ever seen by any actor, anywhere, anytime. This was in the theater prior to us doing it on film. Now, Streetcar Named Desire won the Pulitzer Prize and all of that, and certainly was a magnificent, heavy drama, but it had more laughs than any comedy running on Broadway that year. It had an enormous number of laughs, hundreds of them. Mm. And it ran very long because of that. They had to invent business all over the stage while people were laughing about every fourth or fifth line, and yet it had a tremendous power. Mm. And when you can combine comedy with drama like that, I think it's always much more telling.
Let's have a look at another sequence from Days of Wine and Roses now, which shows this sort of heavy side that we were talking about. It's a sequence, in fact, when you're finally taking the cure and you're in the straitjacket.
Oh, yes.
Did you actually observe people going through?
Yes,
Did
we
you?
are. We went, it was terrible. Both Lee Remick, who played in it with me, of course, and I went very often to down to the drunk tanks, and we go down late at night to the Lincoln Heights jail and outside of Los Angeles, and observe them. It's frightening. The drying out tables too, and the straitjackets and everything. It's really not the slightest bit exaggerated. They just go totally berserk.
Terrifying.
They're gone. It's all totally out of it.
What effect did it have on your drinking habits?
Drove me to drink. Naturally. What else would it do? A part like that? No, it didn't. I don't think it had any effect at all.
Didn't it?
Really.
It didn't make you frightened of it?
No, I still kept 2-3 bottles a day.
Has drink ever affected your work?
God, I hope not. I don't think so. I hope not.
You'll have observed people in your business whose work it has affected.
Yes, not very often.
No.
I've seen, there are some, and it's a pity. If they're going to drink when they work. I mean, that's, usually if drink affects an actor's work, it's because basically he's petrified in the first place. If he ever drinks before a performance, I mean, I don't give a damn how much he drinks afterwards, but the actor that drinks before to give himself a little lift or a boost is in trouble, I think,
yes.
Emotionally, because he really doesn't want to go out there in the first place, or he wouldn't do it.
No.
You know, what he's trying to do is bolster himself up.
Why is it, I wonder, though, that so many creative, gifted people have got a drink problem? It's amazing, isn't it, when you think...
I don't know, but I agree that does exist. Now, maybe it is only because, maybe it doesn't exist beyond the norm. Maybe it's because of them being extraordinary people that we hear about or know more about than the bloke around the corner or something. Maybe that we think so, you know. But it also probably is true, and I think that creative people, when you think about it, how many happy creative people have there been when we think about it, in any field?
Yes.
You know, I've always been struck by the fact that, especially the great geniuses of our time, whatever we can glean of their lives, very, very rare, no matter what the field, very rare that they were happy people.
Yes.
Because apparently the sensitivity and intelligence that goes hand in hand with creativity beyond the norm, you know, that's within somebody, that perception that they must have must make them unhappier. They can see more and feel deeper than the average person, and they are more disturbed by things than the average person. And therefore, they look around them and they are unhappy, you know.
Can we talk now about a new aspect of your career, Jack, which was directing? You recently directed a film called Koch. Did you feel that, you know, the time had come when you had to direct, or had you always wanted to be a director?
In the back of my mind, I wasn't looking to direct at the time that Koch happened, but I had wanted to direct sometime. And I had been offered a few chances to direct, but I had never found a script that I felt I should do, that I read and said, wow, I want to do that. I have a point of view, because I think that a director must have a point of view, you know, himself, not just shoot it and do it mechanically, you know.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, Richard Carter, who produced the film and who had been an associate of mine for years, had this script by John Paxton and asked me as a friend just to read it. So I read it, and from the second page on, I realized I kept reading it from the directorial point of view, and I loved it. I loved the whole theme, the story. I don't know what it was. I just was terribly attracted to it. And so I told him, I said, well, listen, when you're writing out your list of available directors, put me down at the bottom, will you? And if you can't get anybody that you really want, I'd like to take a crack at it. So they agreed, which shows that they're very unstable people in the first place. But and that's how that came about.
Yes.
And then the lucky thing, of course, was Walter, because normally you would never think of Walter as a 72 to 73-year-old man, which is a character he plays. But Walter, of course, and Carol, his wife, being very, very close friends of ours, I kept talking about the film. I was excited about it. And Carol said, gee, I'd love to read it. So I gave her the script one night when they were over at the house. So she woke Walter up apparently about 3 or 4 in the morning. She stayed up reading it and said, "You should play this part." He said, "It's a 72-year-old man or something." She said, "It is absolutely a marvelous part for you. You should play it." The next day, Walter comes to me and he said, "Listen, about that script, kid." He says, "You got anybody there yet, huh?" And I said, "No." He says, "Well, listen, keep me in mind, will you, kid?" And I said, "You and me?" He says, "I'd love it." So I said, "Okay." Everybody said okay, and then we found out Walter never read it. He took Carol's word for it, and he never read the script, and he committed to the part, and I had never directed. The guy shows you we're all fruitcake. But anyway, and then we finally were able to make a deal at ABC Pictures after it had been turned down everywhere because every studio said it's too soft. Yes. For today's market. There's no sex, there's no violence, and blah, 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 you know. And they said, who cares about an old man taking care of a young girl, unless it's Lolita? And there is none of that in it. So we had a great deal of trouble getting it done. Certainly it was helped by the fact that Walter was going to do it, but still nobody wanted to make it. And we then finally did, and fortunately it's been quite popular, and it's going to end up making money for the studio.
Well, let's have a look at the clip from it now, Jack. An outstanding performance, as you said, by Matthau, this 72-year-old man. And this is a sequence where they're trying to shove him off into an old person's home, and he goes to see a psychiatrist.
Dr. McKernan's our resident psychologist, specializing in interpersonal relationships. I'll turn you over to her now, Mr. Kocher, and she'll explain the program. Most people find it a rather enjoyable couple of hours taking these tests.
Pop, I'll come
Tests?
back and take you up in an hour.
Nobody's saying to me about any tests.
Now, just part of our service.
Well, just excuse me for a moment, please. Now, Gerald. A new element has been added here. I don't like it. I don't like the look of it at all. Now, I know what Wilma thinks of me, but I discount that. She's not well. Now, tell me, Gerald, do you think your old man has slipped his trolley? I mean, do you think that I belong in a laughing academy?
Pop, it is nothing like that. Now, you got the wrong idea. Now, this is a retirement setup, that's all. It's a beautiful place. It's fun and games. It's the kind of thing that anybody would dream of.
We just want to make you happy here at Sunnydale, Mr. Kocher. That's the crux of it. It helps us to have your compatibility profile and your motivational mechanic. Then we can put you through the computer.
Not me, you don't.
So we can give you directional guidance and integrate your recreational structure and so on.
Up your recreational structure. Oh, it looks like a tree that's charred with some snow around it.
Do you like Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll?
I wouldn't like it by anyone else.
Do you have any children who must live with you?
No.
Please answer these questions true or false. Generally, in this world, if you don't look out for yourself, no one else will.
False.
I frequently give others a helping hand.
True. Did I say something wrong?
Time.
Duck. Dog. Nothing. Trees. 2 cows. 2 cows.
Yes, fine, all right.
An inexperienced spermatozoan, about 15 years old, asking directions to the nearest fallopian tube.
He's a most marvelous actor, that
he's
Matthau,
wonderful.
isn't he?
He's really quite wonderful. You know, the interesting thing is that we avoided, and mainly he, I must say, avoided all of the traps of, he did not play old, he played young. And that was the one thing that we totally agreed on, was forget the fact that he's 72 years old. He's a vital young man. And he had, which we couldn't see here, but that magnificent walk where his head was a little bit behind the body and couldn't ever quite catch up with it. But there was no makeup. There was a wig, period. And then the makeup man, Harry Ray, just took a common pencil, a lead pencil, and just did the lines, the normal lines that are in Walter's face, and just heightened them a little. That's all, and just put a little base. So the whole thing was really done by him. You know, really, it was no great makeup job or anything, and yet he was totally convincing as a man in his 70s, without playing old, you know, or doing any of that.
Very believable.
He's a great actor. He really is, the best I've ever worked with.
Really?
I think so. Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know why.
What makes him-
He's just got an enormous talent, and I don't think he's been tapped. You know, I think Koch is the best thing that's happened for him in years, because it's you know, he can do brilliant comedy, of course, but it's terribly easy for him. Most of those roles that he plays, he can do, just wing them. It's again that thing where I was saying before. It's tough to get parts. People don't think of Walter beyond, you know, being a big star, a great actor, but in comedy, and that's not necessarily true. He could do an awful lot of parts that people just don't think about him for. They would think of somebody else. You know?
The theme of Koch too actually harks back to something you said before, Jack, which is a sort of lack of love. I mean, he gives all the love, but around him society is alien.
Yes,
it freezes him out.
everybody's worried about their own little problem, and they don't have time.
Which is a fair, serious point to be made about today's society generally. In your observation, though, in America, I mean, is that situation, that particular situation, getting worse?
It would be getting worse only because more people are living longer, you know, as we go on. As we know, our life expectancy is increasing through medicine and foods and pills and everything else. We live longer, so as a result, there's more old people to worry about, and so therefore, I suppose the problem would be getting bigger. I don't know how it is in other countries, but the problem does exist. What do you do with old people, you know? And especially when we keep wanting to kind of send them out to pasture or something, and an awful lot of them are vital. They're not really old, except in age, but from the neck up, they're sure not old, and they could. The problem is to find a use for them, you know, and to allow them to feel needed and to be needed, you know.
What's wrong with those people? It's mainly because when I think back of the people I've interviewed on this program, I've interviewed, one woman I remember was 80-odd, who was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, she was as frail as a leaf, but the mind was exceptional. And I mean, she couldn't possibly have had that mind at the age of 36.
That's right.
It was an 82-year-old mind at work, 83 years of experience and this sort of thing.
It's an increasing problem because all of the jobs, for instance, not all of the jobs, I'm exaggerating, but an awful lot of jobs that 50 to 60-year-old men, let's say, had spent their lifetime working up to, are now being done by lads in their 30s. And you can be an old man professionally in many fields when you're just barely middle-aged. You can be replaced, either by a machine or by a very young man. And especially, I know that one area in which it's extremely prevalent is, and one that I would know of because of the business I'm in, is in advertising and promotion and public relations and so forth. The account executives, as they call them, would be in their 50s or 60s and have spent 20 or 30 years building up to that when they are, you know, handling a television show, let's say. Well, now, you could be in your late 20s or 30s and have that job. And if you lose your job when you're about 50, you'll have a heck of a time finding another one.
Are you frightened of getting old yourself?
No, I love it in many ways. First of all, I think hopefully I will get better and better as an actor, purely because I'll be older, I'll know more, I hope. If I'm not a dumbbell, if I keep my eyes and my ears open and observe more, and hopefully my work is getting simpler. I like to think so in the last two pictures anyway.
You mean you're honing it down?
Yeah, you know, it's just simpler, I hope, because it just seems to me that in everything, the simpler something is, the better it is. Not ornate, not 5 shadows and 18 different readings and doing 5 things at once and all of that technique. you know, which young actors can get carried away with, the facility, etc. And hopefully it's getting simpler. But I don't, and I love character parts anyhow. And some of the great parts I'm getting old enough to move into, you know.
Yes.
And
like
as I
what?
said,
I mean, what would you
mainly,
like to play?
I don't know, but just
there's no particular.
No particular.
part.
No particular part. It's just that I think it's a hell of an interesting age to me. I'm 47. I think that the 50s, hopefully, you're still young enough, you know, to have all of the energy you need. I think, and you're older. I should be doing my best work in the coming decade. I hope.
That's a pleasing thought, actually. Yeah. What makes you laugh, Jack? I mean, you've
practically anything.
Really?
Yeah. No, it's fortunately I do. I love to laugh, and things strike me funny constantly. And you know, anything that I think is genuinely funny.
Well, but what about, I mean, incidents rather than jokes, though? I mean,
yes, not jokes as much as,
I don't like jokes,
you know, something that comes out of human behavior,
yes.
be it either visual or vocal. But I always find things are much funnier when they're not what I call one or two line nifties, as we say, where you get the straight line and the punch, when it's strictly a joke, you know.
Yes.
I can't remember the last time I told a joke per se. There's some jokes that are terribly funny, but usually what strikes me funny is human behavior.
Yes, yes. And I think if you look at all the great comedians too, that what they do is observe and then distort
Absolutely.
it, don't they?
Yes.
Who are your favourites?
Oh, I think the classics, you know, Keaton and Chaplin, Fields, and Laurel and Hardy.
I wonder why it is that with Fields and Laurel and Hardy, they're big cult figures now with the kids.
Yeah.
Keaton too,
It's
in this
wild.
country.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder why that is, because you see, the extraordinary thing about them is that none of them were honoured in their own time, were they?
Certainly not to the extent that they have been afterwards.
Which is extraordinary.
I don't know why. And especially with Fields, who had the marvelous quality of hating everybody, you know. Especially women, you know, as anybody that hates dogs and children can't be all bad. Was his motto. That's what he lived by.
Yeah.
You know.
What was his epitaph? Do you remember that?
Oh,
it's. I'll tell you what it was. It's better than playing Philadelphia.
That's it. Yeah. On his tombstone, it's better than playing Philadelphia.
Yeah, marvelous one.
Absolutely marvelous.
What else? Or how else do you sort of relax? I know that you're very interested in music, aren't you?
I love music.
Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of music?
Well, I love both classics and contemporary, but as far as contemporary music goes, I must admit I'm a bit dated. In other words, my favorites are Gershwin, Porter, Kern, and that music, because I think it, although I love an awful lot of the contemporary music, but certainly not all of it, or the majority of it, because a lot of it is just pure sound.
What don't you like?
I hate, well, first of all, I hate when it is just the pure drive, just for the drive and the beat and that emotional wallop, you know. And when it's up to about 4,281 decibels or something, and because I'm convinced half the kids of the earth are going to be stone deaf by the time they're 30. Really, no, they're damaging their ears. They really are.
Yeah.
You know, they on an awful lot of those discotheques, and the kids at home, with the modern equipment we've got, you know, they turn the tweeters, the wooters, and the hoofers, and the hee-hees, or whatever they call them. They've got that stuff going, and the plaster is cracking, walls are shaking, and they're sitting there, yeah, baby, go. And I don't know how they do it, but and an awful lot of the music really is, I love blues, and that's, you know, 3 or 4 chords, you know, but an awful lot of it is purely just 2 or 3 chords for the whole bloody song, and I love something that's a little more involved than that.
Yes.
And a la Gershwin, as I said, or whatever. He had the most influence on me, and actually, because of him, I started playing the piano by ear as a kid. And
why? How because of him?
Well, I just suddenly went dippy. I was away at school, and the boy who was in the room next to me, had a little room next to me, we had very thin walls, and he had an old Victrola, and he was playing Concerto in F and Cuban Overture and other Gershwin pieces, and Rhapsody in Blue and so forth. And I said, gee, this is marvelous. What is that? And it began to get to me. So then I started trying to pick them out on the piano. And I suddenly realized I loved it, so I just kept going. And whenever I got a free moment, I'd be, pounding away by ear only, but pounding away to piano. And I've done it all my life, and it's just been a source of great joy to me, just for my own pleasure,
You've got a free moment now, and we've got a piano over
You've
there.
got a free player.
We've got a free player. Will you play for us?
Sure, I'll try.
Play some Gershwin, huh?
Delighted that you're applauding now because you may not.
I thought that was smashing, and you've passed the audition.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You're better looking than our pianist, anyway. Jack Lemmon, thank you very much indeed. Would you,
thank you.
for being a marvelous guest, I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Would you do us
My
the
pleasure.
honor of playing us
And
out?
I would like to thank you all, because anybody who can sit this long and just listen to me yap is got tremendous courage and patience.
What's you going to play us out with?
Are we going to play again?
Oh,
All right, my
just
boy.
play us out.
We'll play, let's do a blues or anything.